Welcome back. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu presented another 2.18 trillion naira supplementary budget to the country's National Assembly. Now, this request was contained in a letter sent by the president to the Senate President Godswill Akpabio read at the plenary on Tuesday. The National Assembly recently signed and passed an Appropriation Act of 2023 of 819.5 billion naira, which, among other things, made provisions for a 500 billion naira palliative package to cushion the effect of the recent economic policies of the federal government of Nigeria. This is the second time Mr. President will be taking a budget action since he became president of Nigeria. Looking at the issues surrounding this, we have joining us board member of the U.S. Africa Trade Council, Olusiji Aina. Ms. Aina, thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me.
Right. What's your overall assessment of the supplementary appropriation bill? I think it's past second reading at the House of Representatives, proposed by Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This, you're looking at a lot of money. I think the first or highest allocation goes to defense, and the second highest allocation goes to works. What's your thought on this?
I think at some point the National Assembly did express their reservation to Mr. President that he shouldn't spend any money without being appropriated. So first of all, I think it's in the right way for him to have sent in the supplementary budget, given the fact that he wasn't the one who prepared the budget, and several scenarios have actually overtaken the event, since he assumed office in May 29 this year. So first of all, it's the right thing to do to ensure he seek the approval of the National Assembly before he makes any appropriation. However, if you look at the breakdown of the appropriation itself, I think about 210 billion will go for the additional 35,000 naira increment for the civil servant that he promised the union the last time they met with him. About 400 to 500 billion will go to conditional cash transfer, which again, for me, I have reservations about. It doesn't really matter how important it is to put money in the hands of the people in order to be able to stabilize inflation. But again, how far can the money go? Is the register clean enough to be able to absorb all of that? That's a different kettle of fish entirely on its own. But looking at the entire appropriation, I think is the right step in the right direction to seek the National Assembly approval before making any spending.
So tell us some more about the reservations you have.
Yeah, my reservation in the sense that the register in question has been a subject of controversy over the years. Many other stakeholders, the civil society organizations, including the World Bank, at some point they queried that register, because it was observed that a lot of the beneficiaries in that register are either dead or not alive, replication of names, and all of that. So how far the new minister has been able to clean the register, I wouldn't know. I was also told that they've made some update on that register. But for me, my reservation, basically, it is the way the register has been designed ab initio. And I don't think whatever is being done around it will be justifiable enough to be able to push out any fund. I would have expected that approach would have been done in a different way. But nevertheless, it's a good thing to put money in the hands of the people, because economically, when people begin to spend more, you are able to reduce inflation and stabilize the inflation to some extent. But my concern is, if you look at the cost of things generally in the market, how far 5,000, 10,000 can go in the hands of people. I really don't know how that can stabilize inflation. I just believe that it is good to put money in the hands of the poor, but are we saying the real poor will have access to this fund? It's a question you and I cannot answer. And that is where my reservation comes in. If the money does not go to the right pocket, then again, we are going to be making the same mistake that the past or the previous administration made by wasting almost 2 trillion naira that we cannot even account for, and the impact cannot be felt on the economy. That is my reservation.
So are you saying that this is not a good use of taxpayer money, or should we put it, do you think this is a good use of taxpayer money?
Well, basically, like I said, if you look at post-COVID post-COVID-19 in the United States, the economists also suggest that you should put money in the hands of people. But the money goes right into the hands of the real people who are able to engage in spending. and that was able to stabilize inflation to a large extent. I believe that is good because Nigerians are really suffering. The extremely or vulnerable poor really need that support to be able to, make a good living. Again, the concern over time is if the right people will have access to that fund. Politicians are fond of, sharing funds to people who are in their support. And then you will see a particular person putting the children, putting the brothers, all manner of names and all of that. And the register has been faulted severally, but it needed proper cleansing. I wouldn't know what steps, what processes the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs must have put in place to clean that register. That is my concern. So if you carry taxpayers' money and give to the people who are not the direct beneficiary of that fund, then it's like we are just wasting our time or pouring water inside a leaking basket. That is the way I've seen it. So until we are able to certify that register that is a reflection of the really poor in the society, I don't think it's the right thing to start sharing that money at this point. A lot of people went against it, even at the initial time, I think around June, when that money was going to be shared. It shouldn't be the same way that the previous administration followed that we should follow. There are better ways to work, with different INGOs and NGOs who are working with the extremely vulnerable that will be able to access the real poor and provide details of those people, to the federal government where these people can benefit directly. Not the one that was done in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Right.
I don't believe that register is clean enough to be able to, collect taxpayers' money and give it to the right people. That's my concern.
All right. This budget, supplementary budget of 2.6 trillion naira is quite heavy. 2.176 trillion naira. It's quite heavy on a capital expenditure. We have a capital expenditure figure of 1.165 trillion naira. Total capital expenditure, and the total recurrent expenditure, non-debt, is 992 billion naira. And some have said that it is better to have a budget of government spending more on capital projects than recurrent projects. And we normally see with the budget, the general budget, that we have more spending on recurrent items than capital. So is this a positive development, a positive attribute of this a supplementary appropriation or supplementary budget, in your opinion? Can you hear me, sir?
Thank you again. I think in my opinion, yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know whether you can hear me too, but I can hear you.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Please go
on. All right. Well, over the years, it's been a major problem in this country where you have recurrent expenditure taking almost 90 or 80% of the entire budget. The way it should be, flip the other way around. The recurrent expenditure shouldn't go maximum more than 30-35% of the entire budget. And then we should have capital expenditure taking the chunk of that budget. Again, that's to tell you how much government is expending on personal items, on comfortable items, talking about taking care of salaries, additional fund. That about 210 billion is going into that. The new ministers are in part, they are in office. They will need to procure new vehicles. They will need to do a lot of things, make budgetary allocation for travels and all of that. I think all of this is taking the fund. And again, Nigeria is in their need of capital spending. I'll give you a very quick example in terms of our road infrastructure. I don't know which of the road in the entire country can take a stretch down of more than 100 kilometers, with exception to Lagos-Ibadan Express Road that was just recently concluded. All of the major roads in Nigeria are in the state of shambles. And I think the new Minister for Works is talking about expending some huge amount of money to fix those roads. If we don't begin to look at all of those infrastructures, especially the road infrastructure, which is very critical to the survival of an average, farmer in this country, access to commodity, access to food, access to goods and services. The road is a critical component of the economy. So I think this particular budget is just in a way to kind of satisfy some of the yearnings of the people, to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal in terms of creating alternative palliatives for the people. That is what I've seen with this budget. What I'm looking at is largely the budget of 2024. And I shouldn't expect that the budget of 2024 should have more than 40% recurrent expenditure. We should have not less than 60 to 65% capital expenditure in that budget. I believe we can waive this for the sake of the fuel subsidy that will be removed to cushion the effect and provide alternative palliative for the people so that the effect will not be too much, because a lot of Nigerians are suffering. A lot of Nigerians are going through hardship. People cannot even afford to take a square meal per day, up more of two. So talking about that conditional cash transfer, if it goes to the right end, at least it will be able to help in a little way. So, and then the increment in salary will also help civil servants to be able to get to work and cushion the effect and be able to pay their children's school fees. So it's understandable for this supplementary budget to be in that way. My concern, like I said earlier, will be 2024 appropriation bill. If the capital expenditure in that bill does not reflect 60%, it shows that the president is yet to understand what he's about to do. But then, I don't want to preempt them. I want to assume they understand this, and I want to assume that by the time they will present that budget to National Assembly, I think in a week or two, we should see something differently. So until then, let us wait and see what is going to come. But for this, it's understandable and we can let it go because of the challenges at hand in the country.
Interesting. You've talked about, the National Social Register, which is quite controversial. Government people will tell you that the World Bank and UN and co work with the government to set up this register, and they're so happy about it. But you've said something different, that they have some reservations about the names and the people in that register. Some are dead, and some names are repeated, and all that. Well, which items, apart from that, the conditional cash transfers and the welfare component of that, which items in the supplementary budget do you think are unnecessary and could be cut? I mean, I can give you some choices, and you can make your choice from any of them. We have 1.5 billion naira for vehicles for the office of the First Lady. We have 2.9 billion naira for sport utility vehicles for the presidential villa. We have 2.9 billion naira to replace operational vehicles for the presidency. We have 4 billion naira for the renovation of the residential quarters of Mr. President. We have 2.5 billion naira for the renovation of the vice president's residence. We have 12.5 billion naira to be spent on the presidential air fleet, amongst others. We have, for instance, digitization and computerization of the villa to cost about 200 million naira, etc., etc. Of all of the ones that you can remember off the top of your head, which ones do you think ought to be cut?
All of the ones you mentioned to me are not necessary. I think the high time will begin to prioritize taxpayers' money, to begin to prioritize some very critical and important, stuff in the country, the better it is for all of us. How do I mean? It was all over the social media that when Gambia president resumed office, he said he brought about $1.9 billion to him to fix for his utility vehicles, presidential fleet, and all of that. And the first question he asked them, where are the previous vehicles that the former president used? They said it's there. Well, you can't use it. Let's buy and procure a new one. And I said, no. What's wrong with it? Let us repair it, and I will use it. Now, let me ask you, how many places does the president go? Those vehicles does not go on the road where the common vehicles ply. Those vehicles are specific places to pick the president from one point to another. It doesn't travel long distances. That presidential fleet or the presidential vehicle will not even travel from here to Lokoja, or will travel from here to Nasarawa. Barely do that. If they have to go, they will have to use chopper, helicopter, and then use the air fleet. Why should we spend money to replace the presidential fleet? Some months ago, or some years ago, less than 2 years ago, we understand that, is it termites, I don't know what they call it, rodents entered the presidential villa and entered the president's office. And then some money was appropriated to kind of refurbish the entire presidential fleet because they needed to repaint, they needed to remove some things and all of that. That's not even up to 2 years. Why are we so wasteful in spending? Why do they have to change everything every 4 years because a new president is around? Why can't we learn how to maintain some of those things? What is the lifespan of an average, vehicle in terms of what does he use? Look at the office of the First Lady. It's in our constitution. Why are we spending so much money, for the office of the First Lady? If that office will need to operate and operate efficiently, why can't she apply for donor agencies to support that office to provide other things? Why do we have to spend taxpayers' money? In terms of the presidential fleet, it has been established that the number of planes in the fleet is too much, and some of them should be sold. And then the former president retained all of the fleet. Now we are going through the same thing. The vice president has not been in the country for a while. He's been traveling currently in the US. The president himself is also busy traveling. All of this is not what we can face or what we can carry at this point. When an average Nigerian cannot even afford to put 1 square meal on the table, there must be some level of consideration. There must be some level of empathy on Nigerians. I don't think all of these expenses are needed at this point. Even if it's going to be done, they should have waited perhaps till next year in 2024 appropriation bill and then smuggle it inside where Nigerians will be able to see details. But this particular one, it's obvious that they are not even thinking the way we are thinking. And as far as I'm concerned, if you are in that class, you will not even feel the pulse of the common man. And until we begin to see people who show beyond leadership and begin to love the people, care for the people, feel the pulse of the people, then all of these expenses will continue.
Right. Okay.
Like I said earlier, just a moment. If you look at the number of ministers, I heard the accusation recently that a minister will have a minimum of 6 cars in his fleet. We have about 44 of them. Multiply it by 6. It's far more than even what the assembly is buying. The economy is bleeding, and this is not necessary at this point. I think they are not being empathetic about Nigerians, and that's why this expenses is going on. It's not right. It's not proper. It should have waited till 2024.
Okay, interesting. So talking about waiting, of course, you've told us about your thoughts on the impact on the Nigerian economy, but some have said, there's no need to wait to have the supplementary budget. Just 2 months away to 8 weeks away to the new year. The medium-term expenditure framework for 2024 to 2026 is already up. On the budget office's website, they've done all that, and they're working towards the next budget cycle. And some have said, why the rush? Why don't you wait until next year before you and just have a fresh budget? But the question to some I would asking is, can Nigeria's security wait for 8 weeks? We have a lot of money being spent on security, the highest allocation in this supplementary budget. We have the repair works on the 3rd Mainland Bridge, on Eko Bridge, on several other roads in Nigeria. You have the Coastal Road, you have work on flooding control in Ekpe, in Ikorodu, and all that. It's all there. So can these things wait, till the next 8 weeks, next year?
If you listened to me earlier on, I made exception for road infrastructure in the country. In terms of 3rd Mainland Bridge, yes, I applied the road a couple of times, I think 2 weeks ago, and I look at it, it's in a total mess. The level of pothole, the kind of potholes on that 3rd Mainland Bridge is an eyesore. It can cause serious accidents in a way that is unimaginable. I understand that. The Eko Bridge, I understand that. Talking about erosion in Ekpe, it's not only in Ekpe. Erosion is everywhere in the country. If you go to Kogi, if you go to Enugu, if you go to all of those places, erosion is there. Those ones may not wait. I understand that. And that's why I said in terms of capital projects and major infrastructural constructions like road construction, it is very important. It doesn't have to wait till 2024. We need to declare state of emergency on Nigerian roads. That's understandable. In terms of health, that is understandable. But in terms of personal expenses, buying of vehicles, painting of villa, taking care of VP's villa, all of those ones can wait. I bet it with you. And I'm very sure if you and I comes back on this budget after they must have presented the short to midterm template and present the 2024 budget, you will be amazed that some of these things that's been sent to National Assembly for appropriations will automatically find its way into 2024 budget again, if care is not taken. And somehow, that is what we're saying. We've seen this happen at the National Assembly. It's been accusation and counter-accusation in terms of how this template is being repeated without even consideration for the point or the budget line items that are there to be properly reviewed. And then those figures have been continuously changed. If you talk about the computerization of Aso Rock, I don't think we should be talking about that at this point. There have been quite a number of budgets, for the computerization, for the upgrade of technology in Aso Rock. in the previous budget. What has been done about that?
All right, very quick one. I'm so sorry to interject here, Olusiji. We have to go. So in one sentence, this money we hear will be taken from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Is that a good sign, a good thing? Because normally we have a deficit budget and we have to borrow.
Well, anyhow, this fund will be taken from somewhere. And the point is, what's going to be spent on are not necessary. In terms of where it's being taken up, it doesn't really matter at this point, if especially it is being done for capital projects that are quite urgent and needed in this country.
All right.
But to satisfy the needs of individuals and make their life very easy, luxuriously, it's absolutely unnecessary.
Okay, so I was hoping you would say that, well, if you're not borrowing, it's a better thing. But you're saying that it's more important is where the money is going to. That's what matters. And I certainly agree with you. Thank you very much, Olusiji Aina, board member of the U.S. Africa Trade Council. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure, having you on Politics HQ tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.